Joe Musten. What's up, brah? Thank you
Hey
for
man.
being a part of the Rev Talks podcast today. Hey, so my hair is Eric is still filming the movie, and we finished
Oh,
filming the movie in April.
yeah.
So my character's has facial hair here, and essentially has like a weird mohawk that kind of looks like I've shaved it with a dagger. So
Yeah.
in the meantime, I'm trying to look like a professional, like
Yeah.
let me list your home for you. So I like have to like have this like blended in kind of weird, but I look like
Yeah.
remember when Yellow Wolf kind of had like short hair and then like
Oh yeah.
a rat tail thing? That's like how I
Yeah.
feel. Anyway, so that's what's going on with my hair, which is a
That's
thing.
cool.
Um, well, hi, hey man.
Man.
So okay, I'm really stoked to kind of like hear from you a little bit, and for the people that don't know, kind of who you are, where you are, and just kind of like what you've been a part of. And I mean mostly in the like music scene to like
Yeah.
present day. If you could just kind of introduce yourself to people from within the Rev community that don't know who you are, or for anyone that just hasn't ever listened to either of the bands or just doesn't necessarily know, can you kind of bring everyone up to speed on kind of who you are, where you are, and like what you do with yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Joe Muston. I'm from North Carolina, a very small town positioned in between two other small cities that no one usually knows. Uh, I'm from a town called Kernersville. Those other two relatively unknown cities are called Winston-Salem and Greensboro. They both have airports. Uh, Um, I'm 37 years old. Uh, I've played in different bands for a long time. Somehow I've strung one along long enough. Well, actually, we broke up for a while, but I'm somehow still in a band. Uh, to varying degrees of quote unquote what doing stuff is. I don't know. Like, yeah. Um, so for me, doing stuff in 1999 was going to hardcore shows and metalcore shows and some, eventually found some emo shows or whatever kind of shows you want to, whatever shows we were all going to. I was going to those things and started a band called Beloved in 1999. Our first show was in early 2000. Uh, Played with Beloved for 6 years, until our last show in 2005. We toured with all kinds of bands that your people may have heard of, like Figure Four and Stretch Armstrong and Comeback Kid and Between the Buried and Me, Bleeding Through, Norma Jean, Under Oath,
Yeah.
you name it.
Yeah.
Copeland, like we kind of Me Without You. We toured with all the people,
Yeah.
all the bands, and then we broke up in 2005. I started a band called Advent. Right out of that, heard from the Lord that I wasn't supposed to be in a band anymore, and then start one 3 weeks later. One of those things, one of those uh, wise wise moments in life. Um, Started a band called Advent. Did that. We kind of started it as like when our homies come to town, we'll be the local, band that will bring all the hardcore kids out and they'll have a good show type of thing. We'll provide the local fan base.
So cred.
Maybe
It's
that's not
so
even,
cred of you.
that's probably
That's
not accurate, but
so nice of you to do for all those
yeah,
touring
for all
fans.
those struggling touring bands on huge tours while we played in front of 30 people at home. Um, it's so nice of us. Uh, so yeah, started a band called Advent. That went from 2005 until 2011. And meanwhile, I was friends with one of the guys in Beloved. He went to a band called Dead Poetic. That ended. Then he goes into a band called The Almost. I ended up playing drums for The Almost, just because it was a good opportunity to keep playing music and playing drums. And I had some friends that were in the band, so why the heck not, just like do it. And ended up having quite a few good years with that. And so Advent ends in 2011. The almost keeps going until about 2013. I think the end of 2013, we had just put a record out, and Aaron, our singer, who's the drummer of Under Oath, he's currently the drummer of Under Oath because they're back together. But at the time, actually, he wasn't the drummer of
It was
Under
not.
Oath. Yeah, he had left Under Oath.
Yeah.
They actually called me and asked me if I wanted to join the band. I said I was too loyal. Said no. So now I'm rethinking things, Maybe I should have done that.
That was the same thing where the Lord told you, but you were like, no, you should have just been disobedient again, bro. That's what I'm saying. Making that mailbox money, bro.
So that ends in 2013 because he starts playing drums for Paramore. He played drums for Paramore for a couple years, I think. And then, so that just kind of fizzled out. And they actually have restarted the band. They just didn't ask me to come play the drums for them. So it's real funny. I'm sure this is a Let's Get Real podcast. So if you just ask me questions, I'll talk. Which, full disclosure, this will be the first time I've ever talked about any of it. Not trying to push it in a certain direction. But I ended up getting back together in 2016, I think. We had our first shows back in 2016. So 2016, we put an EP out. 2017, been doing that. I did another thing called Torn.
Yes, you did.
In some year, I don't even remember what it was. It was myself and a couple of the guys from the band called Vania.
Was it 2014, dude?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Didn't Death Wish pick it up?
A subsidiary of them did, yeah. So
keep going. Sorry, so you were in Torn. And I was
I think it was one of the guys in Code Orange he was the guy that owned that label, and he was a Pittsburgh kid, and Pittsburgh loved Advent. We just kind of fit their thing, So he was wanting to pick up that Torn Advent side project, blah blah blah. So now it's 2020 and I still do Advent. And as of November, Beloved announced that we're doing 2 shows this year, one of which is Furnace Fest, and the other, we haven't actually announced the show yet, but it's going to happen.
Just one show.
So we're doing one show. Yeah.
Disregard that other thing.
Oops. No, we are. I've been talking. People are always asking me. I can't help it, dude. I'm just giving up all the info. So we're announcing next Wednesday.
Oh, good. Okay. So you could say, because this isn't coming out for a couple weeks. So.
Okay. So maybe you've heard about the show on Facebook. Maybe you heard the news. Yes, we are playing a show February. No, not February. May 16th. May 16th in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, with Magnitude, who's a young straight edge band out of Charlotte, North Carolina. They're blowing up, dude.
I think did you post about them?
Yes.
I listened to them on a run, and they were awesome. They were so good.
I just went and saw them, and the whole room was like jumping up and down. It was like a Snapcase Strife show kind of vibe. Just, so much energy. And then As Cities Burn is playing the show as well. So.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
So.
Super epic. Wow. Okay. So then what do you do? So what is your daily life like? Tell people about kind of what you do in, cause you're in Winston-Salem now, aren't you?
Yeah. Winston-Salem.
Okay. So what do you do with yourself day to day? So musician Joe, been in a bunch of cool bands. You've done a lot of music stuff since 1999. So before you've been going to shows, but 1999 to present, you've been a part of and bands and touring all over the place. But what is day-to-day life look like for you?
Yes. So I'm married, have been since 2004. My wife and I just had twins about almost 3 years ago. So they're about to turn 3 in March. Can I say that yet? Okay. No, yeah,
Just
they
say they're 3 now, and that's a real trip. Like,
they're
just
three
prophesy.
now, depending on when you've heard this. I'd assume that you haven't heard it yet, so they're turning 3 soon. Case and Izzy, I love you. No, it's a boy and a girl. Our son's name is Case. Our daughter's name is Isabel. We call her Izzy because it's got a little pop to it. I like that. It's good. No, I went and saw somebody sing one time, and the girl's name that was playing piano, her name was Izzy, and I was like, dude, that name is cool. So, and then there was a straight edge kid from the beach. His name was Izzy. So I was like, you know what? We're gonna name one of our kids Izzy. um, so yeah, so I'm married. My wife's name is Emily. She works for a big old bank here, and she's one of those evil bankers that we all post about and write songs about and stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
All the
So a
political.
lot of inspiration at home. You don't have to go far to find
She's the
the
enemy.
hatred that fuels
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
our yes. It's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
And every time she says something mean to me, I just write it down. I'm like, you just wait till this new Advent record comes out. I'm harping on banks this time. We went after the religious systems in 2009. This time it's the banks.
Yeah, heck yeah, it is, bro.
Man, I'm on fire today.
Just killing the game, bro.
Yeah. But I work for a church, which is really weird because I just never thought that I would. Never actually did any work in order to prepare working for I was just in bands and played drums, set up cymbals on stands, shook hands with kids, told some kids about Jesus, got to have some really good conversations, did ministry long before I ever worked for a church, I guess.
Yeah.
But never thought that I was ever gonna work at a church. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just playing. No, we love you. I love you, church. I love you. They're not gonna see the hands, but you can tell them I'm excited.
They might. We'll put the video on the YouTube thing, and then people can see all this. Okay, so tell me this, Joe. So like, when I just feel like I'd like to hear a little bit about God sort of like you bring beloved to the end of a season. You said, then you really felt impressed from the Lord, like, don't do this. You did it. Tell me about that a little bit, right? Because we always say, like, in our crew, like, we're like, God's first language isn't language, it's communication. So God's going to communicate with you. So you really felt like he communicated to you. No. Why? And then why go, like, tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Talk about your disobedience. I want to know.
It's that thing. We were just talking at lunch today, like one of the, obviously all the guys sitting around the table, not obviously, but okay. So, all the guys who are sitting around the table are married. So, but we're talking about, back in the day, you meet a girl and as soon as you start talking to her, she starts talking about God. And one guy at the table was like, that's my red flag, like I just kind of, as soon as a girl she gets those crazy eyes, starts talking about God, he's like, I don't know about her, which is really weird because we're all a bunch of pastors. So, but also you get the, like, Jesus broke up with me thing, like Jesus told me to break up with you. And I still kind of figuring out the Jesus told me to break up with you thing in my life. But the Jesus told me to leave this band thing, I don't know, like, looking back on it now, I think I wanted to leave the band, but I think that God was clear that, I think I just began to feel unsettled spiritually. So I think God was speaking, he was communicating. There were a lot of different things that led to, it wasn't just like everything's going great and all of a sudden I'm just like, all right, guys, this is going good, but I'm just the Lord's moving me on. We had a just in management, which it in management and in our interrelationships in the band, I just felt like we were kind of moving away from what we had originally intended to set out for. And as a hardcore kid, you're like, oh, it's all, like I'm a straight edge kid.
100% belief, bro.
Like
100%. And if you're going to
integrity.
believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Integrity, my values, my convictions, you'll never test them. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's the moment where I tell you what will test your convictions is when somebody hands you $2,000 and they were like, you were just gone from home for a couple weeks. Here's $2,000. Your band's barely doing anything, but here's a little something for the future. Like this is a glimpse into the future. And you go, and your heart starts to kind of not change, but you just kind of get a little bit of that, wow, like this could really be something. And you're like, you're hearing the conversations in the van when you're on tour. Everything begins to shift from like this thing that's sitting in your heart to the thing that's sitting in your hand. You know what I'm saying? The fire that's in your heart, you're trading that for the dollar bills in your hand almost. So for me, it was like, I'm not accusing any of the guys in the band of doing that. But the way I felt at the time, I just felt like things were shifting too much. I was about to get married. I was getting married in 2004, in November 2004. So it was one of those moments where like, I'm feeling different. My relationships with Josh, it feels a little different, than it used to when we were young, writing songs in my basement. And, some of the guys are, I don't think they would feel uncomfortable with me sharing this. Some of the guys are going out and like having some beers, maybe having a few too many some nights. And it just makes me and Johnny, Johnny. So we're just like in the back of the band, just, just how dare they? Johnny's ready to fight. I'm like, just kind of confused. None of our guys were like alcoholics or like ruining their lives, doing anything weird on tour with girls. I'm so thankful that none of that stuff happened in any of my bands. So thankful for that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's real.
Anyways, but things just shift, man, and you just feel like you're getting the pieces are just coming together slowly, quickly, whatever. Like, and I just felt like I don't know why. I don't think I ever actually heard God say, Joe, now's your time. Quit the band.
Mm-mm.
We're going to go after that job at the Gap. Okay. Funny story. They fired me a month later because my manager shot a gun off in the back hall of the hall. Yeah, and I didn't say anything. I went total street law on that. I was itching, so they got me. Shot a gun inside of a shopping mall. But anyways,
never snitch, Joe. Good job. Oh my God.
Dude, I got too many stories, man. It's ridiculous.
So
I think
awesome.
we all do.
Shot a gun off. Okay, so you said unsettled in your spirit. How much of that? Here's what I like about Jesus in my experience. He can be kind of whatever people need him to be, and he's so secure kind of in his own identity as the Lord that he's like, yeah, you need me to be your way out, I'll be your way out. You need me to be your way in, I'll be your way in. Like, I feel like people do that a lot. So when you said you felt like maybe you didn't want to be in the band anymore, was that like, did you actually put it on God at some point, or was it, is that what you said to the dudes?
Maybe irresponsibly so, but I mean, obviously I thank God for his mercy.
Come on, man. I mean, that's what I'm saying. He's looking at us going like, you could just say you don't want to do this anymore, and I'd be good. Like, I'd be okay.
Yeah.
But I've been that guy, so I totally get it. I just was wondering, in the beginning of, you're like looking at Emily, like, we're going to spend the rest of our life together, and I'm going to either keep leaving, and I don't know what to do. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God. Like, so that's like the unsettling. That's pretty sad. Okay. So within how long after you end, Beloved ends, you leave Beloved, and then you're like, hey, let's do this new band?
January 14th was the last Beloved show. I think our first show with Advent was April 30th, 3.5 months later with Turmoil. So I was like, hey, we'll come back. Hey, God, you saying I should be in a band?
The process of bailing on my friends and moving forward. Oh my God.
Yeah.
All your friends are like, what the? Anyway, so it's cool. You just like did the show. No big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about Advent. Tell me about, especially because I'm a drummer. I'm not near as good as you or Jordan or other people.
I'm not good. Jordan's good.
Shut it. Anyways, what I'm saying, Jordan is awesome. You're very good. What I'm saying is, as a drummer, when people ask me what I play, they're like, are you a musician? I'm like, yeah, I'm a drummer. The band I was in, I yelled, so everyone knows me as a yeller, but I'm a drummer. Yeah. Like, so what was that transition like for you, going from I'm a drummer to now I'm singing? And what was the point of Advent when you started it?
I think the context for Advent starting, it was just a 3-piece when we started. So I remained a drummer. I'm at some level, I'm still a drummer that's in Advent, because when it comes to writing.
Yeah. Don't you record? Don't you do the recording and stuff?
No, I definitely help with a huge chunk of the writing, but it's not in order to, in the early years, it was because we didn't have a drummer.
Yeah.
We would have guys come in and play shows for us, and stuff. So I was just writing the drum parts because I can hear in my head, I'm hearing guitar riffs while I'm playing the drums. And I would, like a shower riff, you're in the shower. Yes. So I'm like hearing that kind of thing in my head. But the only way that I can communicate that fully so that the band is like, they're like, oh, snap, like they can pick it up, is while I'm playing the drums. Like, just imagine you're playing this riff and I'm going, just kind of like, so I had to be the drummer for a while. But then when we would play shows, I would step out and do the vocals. So it translated really well because
you knew where everything was at. Yeah.
Totally. And I was already the drummer and screamer in Beloved anyway. So I'm screaming and playing the drums anyway. So I don't know. I had already done both, but I feel like being a drummer definitely helped me. And I think this is huge with you, is that I don't think that I'm not like, Tommy's a rapper, but you write things, your cadence and your rhythm is so, it's so rhythmic. It's not just like raw. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's got like its own nuanced rhythm and cadence to it. That's like, man, he's like rhythmic. Yeah. So for me, for Advent, it like helped me because I was like, the drumming aspect helped me to fill out my rhythm, my vocal rhythm out even more. So like that translated really well.
Yeah, the syncopation of how you're going to put, where you're putting what, and how that goes down.
Thank you. I'm a drum teacher, and I literally couldn't even remember.
No, you know what I think is funny? I was talking with my homie. His name is Casey, and he's a like theologian. He's a youth pastor in Brooklyn, but he's part of kind of our family. And we were just talking, and he went to school originally for like jazz theory and other stuff. And then the Lord kind of got a hold of him. And now, I didn't circle back. I remember I was talking with him, and he brought that up, and I wanted to I was like, hey, we'll put a pin in this. We're coming back to jazz. But then we went so cool that I was like nearly crying and was like, okay, and we're done. We're out of time. Awesome. Wow. But I feel like when you say that, I feel like Thelonious Monk, who was like the piano player, he played piano like a percussion player.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I feel like for drummers, I feel like that's why I don't know, we sit in the back a lot of times and we watch other people do stuff, right? Like you didn't all the time with Beloved, but it's like we get to sit in the back and watch how it all goes down. And then I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of fun to like come out and go like, hey, here we go. Like I wonder if that's why Dave Grohl's so good. I don't know, but it's like there's something about that whole thing. So thanks for saying that I write lyrics in a way that makes sense rhythmically, because it would suck if you're like, as a drummer, bro, like your timing's horrible. And then I'd be like, oh God, oh God. And I'd like hang up.
Yeah.
Okay, so then tell me about tell me about the theology of Advent. Like where did it start? Where are you at now? Like, because I think it changes depending on what we're going through.
Wow, it's changed a lot, dude. It's changed a lot.
Remove the earth, and then like naked and cold, and then pain and suffering. So like, and there's a big reason, like part of why I'm saying this out loud so you can hear it, and also so that it goes on record.
Mm-hmm.
I think and I believe in my journey that the band, Advent, your band
Mm-hmm.
fills a spot in my story that like Figure 4 used to fill.
Okay.
And in my brain, that's really important to me because I feel like Andrew and those dudes, like the Winnipeg kids at that time, like they had something really special going on. And I feel like the way that Andrew put stuff together theologically helped kind of save my life a little bit when I wasn't a believer. And so even when they came to Salt Lake in like 99 and 2000 and 2001, and like Blake was booking shows for them at the University of Utah, like that season helped kind of keep my heart alive probably. But it wasn't because of their theology. It was just because they were good. You know, like the records were good. Like, so it made it tolerable because of the sound.
Yeah.
But then when I fell in love with the Lord, it became like life-giving, you know?
Yeah.
So with Advent, when I listen to you guys, I think especially for me, especially the last two records that you've put out,
mm-hmm.
man, that your band helped like really keep my heart alive in some ways. That's why it was so important to be like, you guys have to be a part of anytime we could be together with you guys on the road, or anytime we could do shows together, I'm going to get thrown out. Or, you know, or when we like, you know, play our farewells, it's like, I want you guys to be a part of it, because I do think that, Joe, what you picked up in the scene and your kind of commitment to the value system there, I know where you guys are coming from. And I feel like we're peers in that, where it's like, it really mattered to us, and having a sense of sincerity and substance that made sense back home was very, 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 very important. And I think it really translated well. But I'd like to know, in the midst of your journey, if you have the sincerity and the connection with like a home base on point, where were you at with God at the beginning? And where are you at with God now? How did that kind of take shape?
Well, as I'm listening to you kind of get that question out, I think I had the sincerity part. I think some of me, if not most of me, had the sincerity part down.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize is, as I write songs, as I grow older, as life kind of deals different things throughout the years, is that it changes the way I feel about things. It changes the way that I understand God. It changes the way, doesn't change God, it changes the way I understand him.
Yeah.
You know, and that I'm getting to know him. And then so I had the sincerity thing down. I didn't always have it's not always about being right or wrong. For hardcore kids, it's about, sometimes it is like, I'm right, you're wrong. It's never, I'm wrong, you're right.
Yeah,
it's never that. It's always, I'm right, you're wrong. These are my lyrics, you're wrong. But I always had the sincerity thing down. I didn't always have a great grasp on theological concepts. So I would never, ever consider myself some kind of great, even in our little small sect of the world, this genre, I would never consider myself a great lyricist or any of that kind of stuff. I think people just saw the sincerity and the passion that we would put out while we played. I never took an opportunity while we were on stage for granted. So I would always scream the words with such sincerity. I think people got into it. And I think musically we were good.
Yeah.
All that to say, you know, all the ideas and all of the themes of the songs and stuff shifted so much throughout the years. And I never really hit on one thing consistently, you know, like Remove the Earth was just us just trying to just write enough songs to put an album out, and kind of show off this, like, hey, we can play the craziest, dumbest riff you've ever heard and switch it up in 3 seconds to something else. We're crazy. And we like turmoil. You know, like that was what Remove the Earth was, with, you know, kind of like cotton candy production, you know. And the first song of the album is called Blackout, and it was me just going off about, you know, the political system at the time, and just what I saw was like hypocrisy within, you know, the church speaks about grace and mercy, yet I felt at the time they're so, I mean, they don't give any. we want it, yet we don't give any. And so that's kind of Remove the Earth. By the end of the album, I don't even remember what the last song of the album was. Dude, I was just all over the place. But get to Naked and Cold, and we're kind of finding ourselves in our sound and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of had a lot of the same themes. I just never had a problem with, in the form of song, in that way, calling things as I see them. And I just want to challenge people to say, hey man, like you claim to be a Christian, you claim to have the Spirit of God in your life, yet you point the finger so quickly at other people, live with such a lack of grace for others in your life. It's just inconsistent. As a straight edge hardcore kid, you just want to be about something. And that was my soapbox for a long time. Advent was my soapbox, but I feel like the Lord used it. And then right in the middle of Naked and Cold, we write a song called Revival, you know, like, which was completely different than any song we had ever written. It was a worship song, which is it was really weird, because I'm pulling a bunch of guys on board in the band that may not exactly feel the exact same way as we do. Johnny does, you know, Johnny's like, whoa, Jesus, you know. Not so much like the weird kid at the Living Sacrifice show, like growling out Jesus in the middle of the concert, but very much like conviction, you know. But, you know, Mike feels a different way. Matt's kind of in a different place. Chris is in a different place, but yet I'm writing, you know, about the name Jesus Christ, King of Kings, you know, like so for me, dude, I don't really know if I was ever centered around anything. And I know you're not asking me, like, please explain your theology.
No. I know it sounded, I felt like there was a real call. There was a call. It felt more punk rock in the sense of like, let's look at power structures and let's look at Jesus and let's be like about it. And then you come to an end, right?
Thank you.
Because I'm just hearing him like, yeah, man, it's like, we're just hardcore kids, which means here's a problem. Let's look at it. Let's attack it. Let's interrogate it. But when you're a Christian, your source is a little different.
Yeah.
Even if you're around your friends, it's like, anyway, so taking you through the like Naked and Cold kind of cycle, you stop. Then what happens? And then talk about pain and suffering, talk about kind of, you know, just talk about what happened in the break, why the break, and then why pick it up again, and what sort of changed in the God space for you. What did you go through?
So I was with the Almost. We're doing our thing. Big year, 2010, 11, 12, 13. Those were good years for us. A lot of shows, a lot of fly outs, all the bing, bang, boom fests.
Leaving your homies, Sleeping Giant in Central America.
We ran into you a couple times. I loved it, dude. I loved it. So we do that, but I was just gone more. I was gone more and more doing that. Johnny was starting a clothing store in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And, I remember he called me in January of 2011. He was like, man, I think this is my last year of being in the band. We didn't wrap it up immediately. We played some more shows and did like some final shows. And then, so that's 2011, 12, 13. The band ends. I end up working at a freaking rebar shop.
I remember that. I remember you coming to shows when I was on tour, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And you're bringing dudes you work with. You're just like hanging out.
Yeah, I was like, dude, I brought my buddy Rashad. Shout out, Rashad. I love you. Brought Rashad, dude. He had never been to anything like that. I remember us leaving that night because he stood on stage right beside me.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yep.
He was like, his mind was blown, dude. To go to a hardcore show for your first time and
it's
just
epic anyway. Yeah. It's so epic. Yeah. Well, Johnny said it once on tour. We were talking about it. I think we were in Atlanta, and Johnny's like, dude, there's just nothing like the energy and the spirit of a really good hardcore show. The energy and spirit of a really good hardcore show, when the presence of the Holy Spirit is like really welcome, is a totally different deal. It just is. It's like a different atmosphere in the room.
Yeah.
It's wild, which it needs to be, has to be. But then there's a quality to the atmosphere of the Holy Spirit's presence that's different. And to see it translated into our culture, so wild. So I can't imagine. I'm glad we were like his first experience with that. That's so cool to think about. Like mine was like my first experience was like seeped in hate, and there was a lot of mistrust, and like a dude got stabbed, and it was like, it was just, it felt like you were stepping into like not a good place. So I'm grateful for Rashad. Shout out Rashad, to have a good experience where there's a dude dressed up like a banana stage diving at the same time.
Oh man. So I come to that show, and then 2013 and 2014 go by, and I'm still at the rebar shop. Things change. End up working at a church, which is the church that I grew up at. I'd been gone for a really, really, really long time and came back in 2008. So I'd been volunteering as a drummer and all that kind of stuff for years and years and years. The job at the rebar shop gets done. I end up coming on staff to like clean toilets, fix holes in walls, and they're like, "You're in a band, you know how to run sound." So I'm like, sure, yeah. So, but that, that changes into what it is now. But then my dad passes away unexpectedly. It's what's today's date? The 28th. 28th. So 5 years and 3 days ago. So actually the 28th is the day that we had the funeral here at the church for my dad. So January 28th, 2015, where I'm at the funeral, but that happens. And then, you have something and that's traumatic for me, because I did have a relationship with my dad, and love my dad. And it's so weird. I'm getting to the point where I can't even remember what his voice sounds like anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
How that time just does that. And, I was just thinking about that this morning. I was like, man, it's been so long since I've heard your voice. I don't even remember what it sounds like, which is a really crazy thought, take that. And there's a message in that, right? There's a sermon in that, right? Okay.
No, hey, how about not a sermon in that at all? How about just the feeling of that is like riches, and like maybe no sermon illustration is worth what that's worth, honestly.
Yeah. I love it when that happens. They're like, whoa, there's a sermon in that. Okay. That'll preach. That's a good one. Oh, that'll preach.
That'll preach. I like better when Josh.
I'm learning all the sayings. So.
Yeah, Josh from the Chariot said, "That'll preach," and then he said, "I like that'll tweet more." I was like, "That's better." Way better.
Oh gosh.
Sorry. Okay, so your dad passes away.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago. 5 years, 3 days ago. And for anybody out there who's listening, they know. And I just never known what that felt like and what that could do to just your internal home, your mind and your heart. And so it didn't change anything for me with the Lord except for move me closer to him. And it was
Talk about that a little bit.
It was probably because, as a hardcore kid, you kind of learn to be on edge with everybody. The tattooed kid always judges the old religious, I'm using hand quotes here for any listeners, religious person. We judge them and say, they're not anything like me. They've never experienced anything like me. They've never gone through what I've gone through. They don't know anything about me. And soon you find out that maybe you're the religious person judging the old person in the suit, that maybe that's just what they like to wear to church on a Sunday. And and you don't, yet you're calling them the religious person and you're the one throwing the stones. But anyways, it was when my dad passed away, and immediately, I was literally just talking about this morning in our pastor's meeting. Wow. But it was that season where I actually learned how important, God sees the church and what the function of the church is, other than not our duties, but other than our place in giving glory to God and worshiping God, vertically, but we can worship him through the way we treat our brother and sister, and we're there for them. So I was, standing in the funeral home, looking at my dad's body in the casket, and to my right or to my left, a gentleman named Elwood, which is our senior pastor's father, came and put his arm around me. I didn't know he was going to come. And for some reason, it just blew me away that he had already come and visited with my family so much. And I knew how busy he's our pastoral care pastor. So he would go around and go to hospitals, go to funerals, check on people, go and visit widows and, the shut-ins and all that kind of stuff. But it was the fact that he took time that day to come and just stand with me, put his arm around me and talk with me about my dad while I just tears were just moving. And I started to realize that, that we really are supposed to be there for each other, even in just the simple moments, even in just the moments where we put our arms around each other, just cry with one another. And so it gave me an appreciation for the body, for the church, like in a way that I hadn't had it before, in a way where in earlier Advent years, I was so like, oh, you bunch of hypocrites, and then you have the moment where basically the mirror comes up in front of your face and you're like, I might have been pointing at myself the whole time. I'm shouting a whole bunch of really angry words that sound like they're full of something, but maybe I was just the fool and I was saying something of nothing.
No, dude, I will say too, Joe, and then I just am so appreciative of you sharing such profound kind of loss and stuff. It's I would say I've become really aware in the last couple of months, especially, that I almost get drunk on my own judgment all the time. I could turn it on in a second and it's over. And then I step back and go, what the heck was that? And it's I was just full of my own judgment and I stopped seeing. I just stopped. So when you say that, I think it's really beautiful. The idea that the myth of separation, I love, because we're all connected, whether we like it or not. We can't get away from one another. And it's in moments like that when you realize when one person hurts, we all hurt. Or when one person kind of loves, we can all access something special. Yeah. So Elwood comes and puts his arm around you. You realize oh, this is the point of what all this is.
This is church is happening right now in front of my dad's casket. Mm-hmm. Church is happening. And I had never seen it like that before. And so it just took me to a new level of appreciation for, the body of Christ. But anyways, there's still a lot of pain there. There's still a lot of not questioning God. I didn't have a lot of God, why did you let this happen moments. I had a lot of questioning of man, I just hope my dad wasn't scared. Just like the simple things of just like, I don't know what his last moment, he had a heart attack, but like, I don't know if he was laying there wondering if he was going to die. Like, I don't know what it was like before his body hit the ground when he was, he was on the floor of my parents' bedroom when I sat with him when he had passed away. And you just kind of replay, you weren't there to watch it happen, but in your mind, you're replaying it all day. And every time I would go through another doorway, it was really weird. It was like, I'm so hard on like all this, like, oh, triggers and blah, 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 all this stuff. Yet I finally had like a moment and I was like, okay, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because
I'm scared to walk into a room because I don't know what's going to approach me, which is trauma. It's trauma.
Yeah.
Trauma.
I would walk through, I remember walking through just even last year, we were renovating a room upstairs in the church for the middle school. And I hadn't thought about it in years, dude. And I walked through a room and all of a sudden I saw my dad laying there on the floor. And it was like, holy crap. I'm just up here ripping carpet up and like not even thinking about it, listening to probably like Terror Overcome or something in my head. And all of a sudden, like, it just, people hurt, man. And I realized that it was okay to take time and just sit with people and just walk with people slowly while they heal. Let people heal at their own rate. Don't force people up. And the reason I learned that is because that was what was done for me. So I was learning a lesson of what someone else was doing for me. So it helped me now when I have friends who experience loss. I'm trying to be more like the people that walked with me for 6 months while I just vomited, and all these questions, all these things every day, while I cried my tears, while I lived such an unsettled kind of pathway between my mind and my heart and my spirit, just felt kind of uprooted, and they just walked with me, man. They didn't abandon me. So, and, a word like, faithful, a word like, a phrase like, and this is not biblical, but tried and true. Like there was never any forsaking of Joe Musten during those months while I healed, so that's what I learned. But to get to the point where, like I'm writing Pain and Suffering, I still had to flesh some of that out.
Yeah.
So it was the catalyst. It was the one traumatic event that kind of like said, I was like, you know what? I think I have what it takes to like kind of pour something onto paper, with a pen. And so not everything was about, death and loss, but there is a song on the little EP called Shadow of Death that's literally about the moment, and just wrestling with, the idea of eternity and separation. And well, do I really believe what I say I believe? Because if I do, and if what I believe is true, then I will see my dad one day, and he's with his dad and he's with his mom. And it's really weird. My grandpa died on the stage of this church that I'm currently in. He died on the stage praying a prayer about being in the presence of the Lord. So really, really crazy. So he died of a massive heart attack at the age of 54. My dad died at the age of 64. And I'm still alive and the clock is ticking. And I can tell you, this is how traumatic of an event it is because every single day, I can have a pain in my foot, like, oh, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, am I going? Like, just like, I try to not live there, but hey, it's real, man.
No, it's true. It's true. Just to be upfront, like I went in California, there's a church out there, and dude, so I did a form of trauma therapy with my friend Pastor Christine, and she's like a healing family pastor at this church in California.
Uh-huh.
She's been around the block, and she knows the score. She's just an amazing human. And I read a book because of our work with the human trafficking stuff called The
Yeah.
Body Keeps the Score. And it's basically the story of
Oh,
how doctors discovered psychology. Used to lock them up. They went to the crazy house. Then at
yeah.
a certain point, they discovered drugs, and they thought that was the cure all. And then at a certain point, I mean, think of World War One, World War Two. People came back with trauma, and they just called them like shell shocked, and they weren't
Oh,
really
yeah.
sure what to do. Then
Yeah.
Vietnam, and they realized, well, these Vietnam vets have like memories, and psych and it's like emotional memories are actually manifesting spiritually
Oh,
or
dude.
physically. Like,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah. Yeah.
wonder if other people have trauma too. And it's kind of like the story of psychology and what it does to your brain. So I'm reading all this stuff, and as I'm reading this book, I literally start having memories of like a lot of traumatic experiences that I went through as a kid.
Wow.
So I'm like, whoa, I'm blown away by the science of it. I'm super fascinated by it. And I was told by a guy that works with human trafficking victims, you need to read this book. So I was like, okay. So I read this book. It's like a doctor book, so it's kind of dry, but I think it's like awesome. Get
Oh, yeah.
done
I
with
love it.
it. Go to California, and Christine's like, I tell her, I'm like, she told me she was doing this modality to help work with people that have to release traumatic experiences from their body and their brains. And I'm like, hey, I was just reading this book. And she's like, is it called The Body Keeps the Score? And I'm like, yes, it is. She's like, yeah, the modality that I'm learning right now um, is kind of like another phase, like the next generation of where the guy wrote it. They call it EMDR, like eye movement stuff, where you tell
Yeah.
a memory and your eye moves. So this is like this other thing. And so this doctor discovers this modality. He calls it brain spotting. And like where your eyes move accesses different spots on your brain. And so as he's talking to people about a traumatic experience, i.e., I walk through the door of my dad's room, and then you'll look maybe right. At
Yeah.
certain points, you're like, it'll just happen where your brain and you're accessing something from your brain. And so he discovers that if you can get the right brain and left brain communicating, which some doctors will do like this tapping sequence on your body, or they'll snap to like get
Oh,
your.
yeah. Yeah.
So he discovers with music he can do this thing. So he creates these like CDs and has these tracks playing in headphones, and it's to get your brain communicating right to left, right to left, right to left. So he invents these CDs, and people want to know why. Like, what is the name of them? And he calls them biolateral beats. And it's music, it's water, it's like these songs, but it's this thing. The reason he calls it biolateral is because he was on a flight and met a dude named Evan Seinfeld that sang for the rap rock group Biohazard, and that's
Yeah.
who helped him record his
Wow.
first CD. So when people asked him, he combined Biohazard with bilateral and came up with biolateral beats. So there's always a hardcore kid, always, 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 always there is. But what I'm saying is, so I did a session of brain spotting, and it, like, I can't even tell you what, like, it was as if my body, like someone grabbed my toe and like shook my whole body like a rug, like a dusty rug, and all of these sensations and like feelings, I felt horrible. Like I wanted to leave. I almost like was hyperventilating. I was in the experiences, and it was like my brain took a needle and sewed together all of these horrible, this is when I got broken up with. This is when I almost got stabbed to death. This is when a client told me they couldn't work with me. This is when I got divorced. This is, and it's all these different memories, and I'm realizing I couldn't process them. So my body is like, we'll hang on to them. And so it was like they all got shook. My brain was finally able to pull them up brain and put them at the front and file them away. And it felt like the internal temperature in me went from like running really hot, like survival mode, to like drop down. So we get done in an hour, and I don't feel the same anymore. And she's like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, Oh my God. Like it was like for the first time in 20 years, 30 years, some of these memories finally got put in the right spot. So it felt like science was happening because I could like feel my brain working, but then it also felt like profound healing. So wild.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the traumatic stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's what everyone's carrying around. Like, and our bodies and our brains are so miraculous that like when we can't process it, we kind of shut down and our body goes, I'll do what I can to hold this for you until you're ready. But if we don't ever process our trauma,
Wow.
it'll manifest in sickness and disease. So in The Body Keeps the Score, talking about this one lady that I think experienced horrendous sexual abuse at a young age in a hospital in Boston. Every night from like 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., she would stand in front of the window with her arm out, frozen. Just her body would just lock. Like she just dissociated and like that's where she would go. So like you think about how powerful whatever that was she was trying to fight off or whatever she was trying to keep away, that like she checked out when that would happen. And then like 4 a.m, she'd kind of wake up and come out of it and it would be. So talking about if we don't process our stuff, we get sick, right? Like
Yeah.
if we don't process, it's easy in the church realm to say like, I think that's the brilliance of being a Christian is that the thing that we have is the ability to forgive. The process of forgiveness, it heals us as well as, you know what I mean? Like we release the tension. We don't have the same pain in our neck and our joint. We're not all heavy. Like, I don't know, but I just experienced it. So when you went to talk about it, I'm like, yeah, dude, I did 1 hour session of this like traumatic therapy. And it was like my brain finally got to take a lot of the bad stuff that I've just been holding on to and finally like put it where it needed to go. Wow. It was wild. So anyways, but I like the fact that biohazard, that's all. I just feel like, yeah, let's talk about biohazard and then let's talk about trauma. And I called Christine, I'm like, have you read this book? And she's like, no, I've studied like a bunch of other stuff. I actually haven't read a lot of his book. And I'm like, you know why he calls it bilateral beats? And she's like, why? I was like, New York hardcore. So anyways, so thank you to Biohazard for, helping me get healed or whatever. But
for sponsoring this moment.
Yeah, when you started talking about that with your dad or walking through a doorway and it like it's like that's real. Like it's not emotional like in some flimsy way. Your body
is not.
Your body held on to something that was such a heavy moment that your brain didn't quite know where to do with all of it, and your body hangs on to some of it. And that's just like what you get in a car accident and you start approaching 4-way stops and you're like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's what we do. Like if we don't give our brilliant brain the ability to process it, we hang on to stuff, man. And it happens like almost like in our muscles, like our muscles hang on to memory and stuff. So anyways, so it's super powerful, man. The trauma, that's a big deal. So flushing that out for you in the writing, the shadow of death, like you're writing this stuff out, these moments of time. But you didn't feel like, were you angry with God?
No, I wasn't angry with God. It'd be a much better story right now if I was like, yes, and this is how I got through it.
No. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing that you weren't. I'm saying for Chrissy and me, we went through in the last year, three miscarriages in the last 2 years, 3 miscarriages, the loss of Chrissy's mom and the death of my brother, and the death of my uncle and the death of one of our nephews. And I can honestly say I've been really upset. Like I'm like, so I like that you weren't. I like that. That's actually a better story because it'd be easy to be like, oh, I'm so mad. It's like, well, why weren't you? What about his virtue and his nature made him safe for you, or you weren't mad at him? You weren't interested in that. Like, tell me about that a little bit, because there's a lot of people processing their own stuff and they want to know that it's okay to not be mad at him too. Like, but why was that real for you?
I think it would be easy to say something like, well, I just really built up a very anti-fragile faith for myself. And, You know,
That sounds as stupid as what you just said right then. That the way you
thank you.
said it sounds so
Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, yeah. This is okay. I'm not even gonna go into it.
no, keep going.
So
Okay.
again, I don't know. I up until the point where you experience something like that, you know, life is made up of moments. Life is made up of little conversations and long conversations and car wrecks and hardcore shows and breakups and
Mhm.
first kisses and and no and and I'm trying to write a country song here, but
That's
I'm
super good, bro. You're really getting there. That was good. I can feel it.
Yeah, I don't know, like it's made up of so many things, and then you get to the point where that happens, and the obvious thing would be that, you know, it just kind of life falls apart at the seams. But I had already experienced, you know, God's goodness in my life to
Mm.
such a high level.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me put this into perspective for you. So my dad passes away on January 25th, right? Well, my wife and I had been trying to have kids for probably close to 8 years at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, so about 2 weeks before he passes away, and old Bobby's at my house, or
Yeah.
he's getting ready to come in town that day.
Hmm.
I get home from work. She comes out to meet me. She says, "I have something to show you." And we're in our little townhome, little condo townhome thing. And so we go upstairs and she shows me a positive pregnancy test.
Yeah.
And this is about 2 weeks before my dad passed away. And she's like, and you know what's really cool is the due date is your dad's birthday, you know, September 29th. So I was like, whoa, that's awesome. You know, that's crazy. My parents gonna flip. And then 2 weeks go by, dad passes away. So in my mind, you know, you just do your best to kind of put pieces together in your mind if you're that kind of person. I think we all are.
Mhm.
You're looking for little signs. You're looking for little winks from heaven or whatever you want to call it. You know, yeah, my dad passes away, but the thing we've been praying for the most is finally here, you know, and
Wow.
it's like, hey, this is your dad's birthday, you know. So
Wow.
so 10 days later after my dad passes away, my granny passes away, which is his mom. She
Mm.
has the same birthday, September 29th. And so it's just like, wow, Lord, like you're speaking like this
You're
is
in.
this
You're
this
in
is the
this like
promise.
crazy. Yeah.
This is the prom, you know, it's terrible to go through what we've gone through, but this is here. You know, we're gonna finally meet the promise on September 29th. Well, about 6 weeks later after that, she has a miscarriage. And so that moment feels very just bleak. Just there's nothing. It just feels very gray, looks very gray, feels very cold. You're just sitting in the kind of a hospital room and they're like basically doing a small procedure to kind of just scrape out everything
Yeah.
and you're just like, I thought that this was like
This
it.
made sense. This
I
was the
thought,
story. Yeah.
you know, and then another year goes by, year and a half really. I mean, and then um I am where I am now and thank the Lord. I'm so thankful for it. But it was in that moment it could have been, I think for Emily, if she's being honest, she's more just, you know, she was angry.
Yeah.
But she was angry for a long time because there was a lot of quiet nights in our house, you know, for 8 years. You know, you want to hear the cry of a baby, but you hear your dog farting in the middle of the
Yeah.
night. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
two very different things, you know. But I I don't know, man. I just experienced the goodness of God, and my dad died, you know, as a man of faith. And if there's anything that I would want to carry on, I think in that moment, I think some people go to, you know, the emotion of you know, the pain, just dealing with the pain and just the coldness and just like the darkness that's in the pain. And some people use that as a way, not in any, neither one is right or wrong. I use it as my moment to like this, the next years of my life, whatever I've got left, I'm going to honor my dad, who was a man of faith. Like I'm going to honor the Christ that was inside of my dad. And like,
Awesome.
you know, I'm going to honor the spirit that took him up in that very moment when his body hit the ground. Like that's what I'm doing with my life. And so for me, it was like, I promised my dad I wouldn't go a day without thinking about him. I wouldn't go a day without, you know, just trying to do something, you know, a virtue for the Lord, you know, doing something that's right for the Lord. And I don't know. So it just, that was just me. Like, I don't know how to really explain it other than
No, it's beautiful,
his
bro.
death just affected me, I think, in more of a positive way than I would have thought, you know?
Yeah.
My dad was more of a, you do it, you get it done. And then you do 1,000 push-ups. Like, dude, he died a day after he did 1,000 push-ups in a day. He would curl 45-pound dumbbells while he was watching boxing. Just, at one point, you're like, dude, you've done 300 reps. You know, I'm just like, he was that kind of guy.
Yeah.
So he was that kind of like, if he said he was going to do something, he did it.
Yeah.
He was never I'm going to start my workout on Monday, and then Monday comes, you never did it. He started his workout that day, and you know, like he was just very driven. And so I'm like, I'm kind of not that way. I got people fooled to think that I am sometimes, but the only part of me that is that way is the part of me that wants to honor my dad. That's like, you know, when you know you're supposed to go do something, you go do it. So I was like, Dad, I'm going to honor you with every day I have from here on out. And I've not really done a great job of it, but dang it, I've already failed my dad. But man, you know, I'm trying, but thank God I'm not trying to earn God's love, you know, like,
come on.
I don't need to, you know, so, but I just want to, I think that heaven is way different than we think it is, even though, you know, scripturally we have a great description. I think it's much more beautiful, organic, and familial, and just, you know, Hebrews talks about a cloud of witnesses. I think I'm pretty sure the way my dad professed faith and lived his life and loved people and loved God, I think he's a part of that cloud of witnesses. So I'm like, you know what? I'm absolutely doing everything in honor of the Lord, but there's also a Steve Musten there too.
Come on,
so I do things to honor him just as well. And I think that's okay to like want to honor the people who've gone before you and say, you know, we in the you know, gosh, in our Western eyes, like American charismatic Protestant, whatever church, whatever stream you're in, we have such a problem with honoring saints and people who have gone before us in a way where we're just like, we don't fool around with that stuff because that's, you know, idolatry. And I'm like, dude, I've got a friend that's an Orthodox priest that I went and sat down with him and just heard his viewpoints on things. And it made me just so much more appreciative of like my dad being in heaven, and my friend Whitney, who was the worship pastor here, who passed away back in August 6th. Like, she's there now. Everything that she ever believed, everything that she's saying for, she's experiencing in its fullness now. Yeah. So to a degree that we just can't, not that we can't hear. I totally believe that there is heaven that is to be lived here. Yeah. But obviously there is a fullness, a fullness of meeting him face to face, a fullness of, and being in the company of thousands of those who have gone before you, generations and generations who are singing holy, holy, holy. So there's something just that I want to live my life in honor of those people. But to say that is to say that I honor them because I honor you, Lord. So I honor the Christ, the Holy Spirit that was in them, Lord, because I'm honoring you.
Super
So
cool.
I don't know.
That's powerful.
But
That's really beautiful. Dang.
but
All right, well, let me do this then, because we'll bring it in for a landing. But one of the things I want to do every time that I get a chance to talk with someone or do take time like this, what's something that like all the Rev kids, like anyone that's going to listen to this that has a heart, what's something we can be believing for you and Emily and your kids, or like what's something we can be holding you guys in prayer for?
the lottery.
Give them numbers, Lord. Just give them the numbers, God. We just say glory and Powerball. Powerball,
Yeah,
Lord.
we're without putting too much info out there that I wouldn't want to disrespect Emily, but she's got a heart for a big family, and right now I'm 38 and we've only got 2 kids so far. Lord, help us help,
Yeah.
Jesus, help us with that. So God's people, if they'll pray with us, that we could see our walls expand and our computer room turn into another bedroom. That'd be awesome.
Man, that's rad. Okay. All right. Well,
Well, it's the same thing. You've been praying. I think you prayed for me for that for years and years and years, and I think Jake did and Bobby did, and I don't remember who else did, but I know I probably brought you in on that at some point a long, long time ago.
Yep.
Dude, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
I still think about this all the time, and I think I've brought it up before when I've talked to you, but we were on tour back in 2008, and I was losing my voice. Like, it was happening. I mean, it was really bad. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Let me call Tommy and see what he said. And so
I don't know, fool. I don't know how to do any of this stuff either, bro. I'm a drummer.
So you prayed for me, and we played in like either Dallas or San Antonio that night. And I'm telling you, I was on the phone. I mean, I sounded like that. Like, hey, dude, my voice is going out, And that night, man, we played our show, and my voice came back and just stayed with me for the rest of the tour. And so I always remember that moment of just one person for another.
Get healed, bro. You're not gonna sell any T-shirts. I don't care how cool you are.
I think you legit were like, I'm putting these guys in Baltimore on it. I'm putting these like we had our own crew of just like prayer warriors.
That's how it is, dude. That's how you're gonna do it.
Hey, yo.
That's awesome.
But I just want to say thanks for that, man.
Yeah,
I won't forget that.
No worries.
I won't forget the ways that God has spoken to me through our friendship, through what you've done, the words that I've heard you use on stage, but not only the words I hear you use on stage, but the ones that I can corroborate with who you are, which is pretty much all of them. I won't say all of them, but I'll say most of them. I'm just kidding. No, you're a good man. You're a good man, and I'm very thankful that we just know each other. So all you listeners, he is the real deal. He will call his friends out of the blue and just encourage them. And every time you call me, dude, there's not a lot of people that get an instant like, oh, what's up? I will ignore plenty of people's phone calls. Just ask Bobby, ask other people. I ignore that fool all the time, but you know.
I love you a lot.
So,
oh shoot.
Yeah.
Thanks, fool.
I
want to pray for you, and then I want people to. Okay, so Father, man, I'm just bringing Joe and Emily and their kiddos. God, I'm asking God that you would bless them indeed. What is that verse? That you would enlarge their territory, and that your hand would be upon them, that you'd keep them from evil, and that they would not have children of pain in their home. God, I pray that there'd be no pain in their home. God, and I pray that you'd bring children to their life. God, I pray that they would have more kids, God, and I pray that computer room would become a nursery, and that they would get the promise again and again and again. And God, for any family or any people that are listening that have struggled and they can't have kids, or they've never been able to get pregnant, God, we pray for miracles first and foremost, Lord. And then, God, I also pray that they would be the miracle for people. And so, God, I pray that they would have a large family. And just that you'd bless Joe, and that you'd actually smile and give them favor, like financially and in resources, with people, with opportunity, God. And just from the Rev, like family in their direction, we just pray for blessing. We pray for safety, supernatural health and provision over their lives. And just that they'd be able to live lives full of belief, that Joe would like really feel like he gets a chance to honor his heart for you, God, and his heart for Steve, God. I just pray that you just bless him right now, Lord, and just fill them with your presence and with your love. And I just commit them to you, God, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Right. Well, okay, so where are you guys going to be? You're playing where, and you're playing where in the next couple months? And then how can people find what you're about if they want to follow you and hit you up?
Yeah, so Beloved is playing a hometown show May 16th with Magnitude and As Cities Burn. I'm hoping by the time you hear this that it's close to sold out, so sorry. And after that, in September, Furnace Fest is happening in Birmingham, Alabama. That one's definitely going to be sold out pretty quickly.
It's a crazy fest.
I don't know what to tell you if you didn't get tickets. Watch it online, I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know what my Instagram tag.
I'll tag you. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Second. You can find the Beloved stuff at beloved.nc. Yeah, look us up. We're on there. And then if you want to come follow me on Instagram, that's fine. I post like 6 times a year. It's not a huge burden or commitment. And one post will always be about my dad. One might be about the kids, and then there'll be other band stuff on there. But I'm just Joe Musten on Instagram. JoeMusten.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dang, brother. Well, I appreciate you. I love you a lot. Thank you for taking time. And I got a bunch for my own heart and soul out of this conversation.
I've never been I don't think I'm a very profound person, man. I just love God, and I hope people see that. I don't know. I want to be one of those like, Henry, no. Everybody calls him Nowen or whatever. All these great, like, I'd love to think that's going to be me one day. I think I'm just going to be, I don't know, the old guy in Vans with tattoos, and somehow they think that's relevant. And
probably putting his arm around some kid in front of a casket in about 40 years.
There you go. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll
just show up where it actually matters.
Yeah.
Well, you're the best, dude. I love you a lot. Thanks for being on.
I love you too, man.
All right, I'll see you soon.
Thank you. I peeked during the prayer, by the way. I don't know if you had your eyes closed. I'll see you, dude.
See you. Bye.